Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Thank you to all our callers and the messages that we had during our phone-in segment earlier, where we asked Nigeria's corruption fight, are we winning? Now we dig deeper into the systemic challenges in our discussion on Nigeria's corruption challenge. We'll be analysing existing gaps amid global pushback. Now, corruption doesn't just take money, it takes lives and opportunity. Now, globally, developing countries lose over $1 trillion every year to illicit financial flows. Africa loses nearly $50 billion annually. That is a lot of money, while Nigeria alone loses over $5 billion every year. Now, these resources could fund schools, hospitals, infrastructure, yet millions of Nigerians continue to live without access to basic services. Meanwhile, talented professionals leave the country in search of fair opportunities, draining our human capital due to unfavorable environment. Now, joining us via Zoom from Yola, the capital of Adamu State, is Dr. Amos Yusuf Sunday, who will give us a clear view, from Clearview Integrity Foundation. Dr. Amos is a respected public affairs commentator who will help us explore why Nigeria's anti-corruption fight faces structural gaps, the pressures from the international community, and what it will take to ensure these efforts translate into real, lasting change for the nation. Stay with us as we unpack the numbers, the human cost, and the road ahead for Nigeria. Good morning, Dr. Amos Yusuf Sunday, for joining us on Daybreak.
Good morning.
Good morning, ladies. I hope you're all doing well.
Oh, very well.
Thank you very much. Now,
it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much for being here. Now, at this point, looking at Nigeria's landscape when it comes to corruption, we have seen a lot of things. We've seen a lot of discrepancies, and we've seen that corruption has been normalized so far in the fiber of our being. But as a public affairs analyst, when you look at Nigeria's corruption at this point today, what specific institutional weaknesses do you see as the primary enablers? Regulatory gaps, political interference, or enforcement failures? What do you think is the biggest issue and gaps that we have when it comes to corruption in Nigeria?
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be able to dissect issues related to corruption in Nigeria. The organization that I head, Clearview Integrity Foundation, was founded in 2003, and the impetus for the establishment of the organization, if you do remember, was that it was that year that Nigeria was voted the second most corrupt country in the world by Transparency International, next to Bangladesh. And some of us were very disturbed at the designation of Nigeria then as the second most corrupt country in the world. And this was what introduced me personally, 2003, to the whole fight against corruption, where a few of us came together to start sensitization against corruption. And since 2003, we have been in the business of anti-corruption awareness creation in Nigeria, which culminated in the first chairman of the ICPC, Justice Mustafa Akombi, coming to Yola in 2004 to inaugurate Clearview Integrity Foundation as the only anti-corruption NGO in the entire 19 northern states as of then. And coming to the question you asked, since 2003 up to now, we have partnered with the ICPC looking at the transparency and accountability landscape of the country. And over the years, we have seen how the nation has tried to make efforts in the fight against corruption, which brought about the establishment of the ICPC and the EFCC and the Code of Conduct Bureau, and so on and so forth. But where we are now is that anybody who tells you that Nigeria is fighting corruption is just playing with words for you. The truth of the matter is that where we are currently, we are not serious about fighting corruption. And the fundamental reasons is that we do not have an effective, independent system for checkmating corruption. The organizations that I've listed, ICPC, EFCC, Code of Conduct Bureau, that are supposed to be spearheading the fight against corruption, are virtually non-independent organizations. Their chairmen are appointed by the president. The organizations are not as funded as they should be funded, and there is very little they can do. Look at the politics surrounding the appointment and the firing of the EFCC chairman, for example. So the systemic issues, when you go to other climes, you hear, for example, America that we're always talking about, you hear President Trump ordering a local government a political person to do something, and the person tells the president, I will not. They have the audacity to tell the president, I will not. Look at the recent hula baloo about the New York mayor, Mamdani. The kind of tit for tat, they went with the president of the country, a local government chairman. And nothing can happen to him because systems are working in America. We don't have that in Nigeria. And so if the chairman of the EFCC is appointed at the behest of the president, he say who pays the piper will dictate the tune. Look at in the time of Magu under Buhari, when the whole National Assembly rejected his appointment 3 times. There was a report from the DSS about him repeatedly, and yet Buhari insisted on appointing him as chairman of the EFCC. The resultant, of course, is all the scandals that followed, like looting of relooting of looted funds and so on and so forth. So no
Amos,
systems.
Dr.
The systems are not independent. And then if you follow up to that one also, even within the systems that are established, you discover that our approach is not holistic.
Dr. Amos,
we've been
I wanted to make a point and ask this question. You made mention of anti-graft agencies not being independent and have political, being incompetent at one point, and their relations politically as well. Now, with about $5 billion Nigeria loses when it comes to corruption, do you think that it is highly due to the fact that there are political involvements when it comes to these anti-graft agencies, because we do not see these cases go all the way to court, or they're dropped from at one point or the other? For example, a very glaring case is one of Pondai that we saw, and nothing has been done about it. We've seen a lot of people been probed as well, but it doesn't go further than that.
Well, there are take the EFCC, for example. There are allegations that if you are appointed a staff of EFCC, you automatically become a millionaire. Those perceptions are in the public domain. That the moment you become a staff of EFCC, you automatically become a millionaire.
Why is
How
that?
they make those millions, I don't know. Like I said,
So
there are
you
allegations.
saying that there is
but this is the perception
within those anti-graft agencies as well that are supposed to make sure that people are held accountable for the atrocities of corruption as well?
Yeah, but if you look at what is happening, if truly they are being properly funded, take the scandal around Yaya Bello, for example. You can see that he came in as is more or less like a triumphant entry into the EFCC and left triumphantly. And he's there globetrotting Nigeria as a free person now. Where is the funding for the EFCC? Where are the expert lawyers in the EFCC? That every person that is being invited by the EFCC goes in and comes out smiling. And after the years, nothing happens to the person. Where is the EFCC that every allegedly corrupt person, either a governor or a former governor, who immediately decomes to the ruling party is automatically forgiven? Why has the EFCC been reduced to arresting those who are spraying money at weddings and birthday parties? With all the monies that have been allegedly poured into the EFCC, with all the professionalism, why has the EFCC chairman been reduced to a person fighting corruption on the media? So the EFCC, the ICPC, the Code of Conduct Bureau, as far as public perceptions are concerned, are just there for being sake.
Right,
you have
Dr.
probably
Amos.
heard of the proverbial African dog who was asked about the party taking place in their house, and the dog replied, I'm yet to see it on the ground. As long as the dog cannot see the bone on the ground, then it doesn't know there's a party taking place in its house. So as far as some of us who have been in anti-corruption business since 2003 are concerned, we are not seeing the results of corruption on the ground. It's just like the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics telling us that inflation has dropped, poverty has dropped, this and that has dropped. On the pages of newspaper, it does not translate to the food for the poor man on the table. It does not translate for a better life for the poor man in Nigeria. All those things are still in the air. They are yet to land on the ground.
All
so
right,
the point I am
Amos,
making is that the point I am making is that we have EFCC, we have ICPC, we have the Code of Conduct Bureau, but we are not seeing the effect of fighting corruption from these people because they are not independent organizations. In the case of the ICPC, it is very ill-funded. So they are actually doing nothing in ICPC that anybody can appreciate the fight against corruption.
All right, Dr. Amos, we have a limited time, so we need to touch on, other things as we're discussing corruption. But then I just want to follow up to your statement that you made. I mean, we have seen several cases involving former governors and politicians, and they have lasted 10 to 15 years with no final judgment. Is it that the prosecutions are being delayed, or we have repeated adjournment, and the legal loopholes weaken this all of this? But then I want to ask you, because even you rightly stated that we have seen these cases whereby the EFCC and the ICPC would go after people, but at the end of the day we don't get to hear any information as to how that case is going. Pardon me. So what does this say about our judicial process, and how can the system be strengthened?
Yeah, that is a very serious question. And in the past discussions that we have had, we've talked about judicial corruption. In this country now, if only we can have independent anti-corruption bodies, an independent judiciary, and independent security enforcement agencies, then perhaps we'll begin to talk about the fight against corruption. But as long as the anti-corruption bodies are in the pocket of these politicians, the judiciary is in the pocket of the politicians as it is effectively now, then forget about fighting corruption. You ask yourself, where are the best SANs in this country? How come our best senior advocates of Nigeria, brains, are only good at defending corrupt politicians? They are not good at prosecuting corrupt politicians. The answer is simple: money. Money. Steal as much as you can steal from government, settle the judges, settle the security, get the best brains of SANs, and you're good to go. You're good to go. This is what is happening in the country. So even the whole talk about plea bargain and so on, like I've always defined it, steal plenty, give back small, enjoy the rest of your loot. That is the way to go. So as long as we do not have an independent judiciary, look at Wike is there globetrotting, building houses for judges. It's as if the FCT minister's primary responsibility is to build houses for judges and to make sure that either your wife or your husband or your relatives are members of the judges of the Supreme Court, and so on and so forth. So we are joking in Nigeria as far as fighting corruption is concerned. You cannot have this may not sound like a good illustration, but you cannot have an armed robber at the top as a leader, and then you have a pickpocket playing his game at the grassroots, and you want to report a pickpocket to an armed robber. What do you want the armed robber to do to the pickpocket? Kill him or slap him or do what?
All right, Dr.
So some of us, as far as we are concerned, unless and until the kind of revolution people like me are calling for, different from what Showore and the rest are doing, is an overhaul of our anti-corruption agencies. Let the National Assembly, if we ever have a National Assembly, create laws for making it stringent for anybody to fire the EFCC or the ICPC chairman. When the ICPC and the EFCC chairman know that the president cannot fire them anyhow, perhaps, and let their funding not be tied to any politician, then perhaps, and we do have many Nigerians, crazy Nigerians, who are ready to do the right thing as ICPC and EFCC chairman. But as long as there are loopholes in the hiring and firing of the anti-corruption agencies, we will continue to be where we are. And unless drastic measures are taken against corrupt judges, we will continue to rigmarole around the present situation, because now the judges are more politicians than politicians themselves. All so with the collusion of the judiciary and the politicians, and then a dependent anti-corruption body, Nigeria, nobody in Nigeria can tell you that we are fighting corruption. But if I am to suggest, our time is short, if I am to suggest, despite the fact that we have challenges in terms of who pays the piper, if only even the existing anti-corruption bodies can adopt a holistic approach. What do I mean by a holistic approach? Take, for example, the European Union has a template for fighting corruption that they call TAPE, T-A-P-E-E. T for transparency, A for accountability, P for prevention, E for education, and then the other E for enforcement. You hear nothing about prevention of corruption in Nigeria. You hear nothing about plugging the loopholes, in our systems. With awareness, with education, individuals at the state level, at the local government level can be empowered to know how to plug the loopholes of corruption in our system. But you never hear of prevention of corruption in Nigeria. You never hear strengthening of transparency and accountability. And so only go and catch somebody today, catch another person tomorrow, and make a big media hype out of it. At the end, the guy goes and pays his way out of it and is enjoying his life.
All right, Dr. Amos, let us look at the global pushback at this point. Now, with growing global scrutiny on illicit financial flows, how vulnerable is Nigeria to international sanctions, grey listing, or financial restrictions? We've seen cases of money laundering. We've seen cases of discrepancies when it comes to activities in ministries, departments, and agencies. Just today, we saw the House of Representatives was probing the CBN on discrepancies about 15 trillion naira. And when it comes to NNPCL as well, we've seen the back and forth that is going on. So do you think that Nigeria is going to fall into international sanctions, grey listings, or financial restrictions at this point?
I'm actually surprised that we have not already fallen. I'm actually very surprised, because how is it that we are already not under sanctions, except if those international organizations are equally corrupt and somebody in Nigeria is settling somebody somewhere? I'm truly surprised, because you see, the National Assembly can make noise about 14 trillion in NNPC and this and that. I can assure you, and I've been wrong before, but I can assure you, where the National Assembly is beginning to blow their nose hot and cold over money, is not in the interest of Nigeria, but what they can get out of it. They are just blowing hot and cold over what they can get out of that 14 trillion naira, over what it is. We have not seen sincerity on the part of our National Assembly in fighting corruption. We have not seen sincerity on the part of our anti-corruption agencies in fighting corruption. The executive, the legislature, the judiciary, allegedly have all become the three arms zone of corruption in Nigeria. We are in a cesspool. We are in a quagmire. Some people have referred to us as a shithole, and you can really not. Trump recently called us a disgraced country. You cannot fault all of these names that people are calling us from the outside. We have done this to ourselves. Money, 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 money. Pardon now. Nobody is talking against pardon in our National Assembly. It has become the norm of the day. A former minister told me that during his time, they submitted a budget, and yet the National Assembly people inserted their own aspect of whatever it is that was only related to his ministry so that at the end, if the budget is passed, they can come and meet him and say, give us our own share. This is the system that we are running in this country now.
All right, Dr.
And
Amos.
as long as we continue like that, how can anybody come out and talk about fighting corruption?
All right, Dr. Amos, looking at exposing corruption in Nigeria, you realize that civil society and investigative journalists have, exposed corruption cases faster than government institutions. If you look at the recent corruption revelation in the MDAs, it came first from, journalists and also whistleblowers before official investigations began. So what does this say about the public trust in the system? Because if we have the EFCC, we have the ICPC, but then, I don't want to say that they pick selective people to go after, because this has been the voice and words of Nigerians, that if you see the EFCC going after somebody, is either is a political witch hunt or, is being planned against. What do you think is that means for the trust of these investigation institutions that we have in Nigeria?
There was a cartoon some years back under Buhari. Buhari was holding a double-barrel gun, and he was dragging a victim he had just shot, and he was going across the village street, and then everybody else was hiding in their hut. And then there's a caption that said, "When I see the broom, I will pass over you," which was actually a parody of the biblical verse that says, "When I see the blood, I will pass over you." Of course, the message of the cartoon was that the moment you join the party of the broom, the APC, I will pass over you, which means I will not attack you, and so on. And this is the picture of Nigeria. Whoever comes to the ruling party is protected from prosecution, no matter his offense. This is the perception on ground. And the EFCC and the ICPC have a lot to do to clean their image about witch hunting the opposition. Presently, that is the only unmistakable conclusion. But we have a ray of hope from what the civil society is doing. SERAP, Budget, other anti-corruption agencies that we know about, always blowing the whistle, and exposing all of those sleazes in government, out of government, and so on and so forth. And I want to say kudos, even at the state level. You never hear them at the national level, but there are many anti-corruption and other civil society organizations at the state level who are partnering with government to expose. Just recently in Adamu State, with the support of ROLAC, the rule of law and anti-corruption, an idea, establishing anti-corruption units in ministry, departments, and agencies. Here in Adamu State, we are working closely with government to make sure that there are anti-corruption units established in various MDAs. So the civil society is the hope of Nigeria. Unfortunately, they are working under very difficult conditions, very little to no funding, and so on. But I am a member of the civil society, and we're doing a bit. But those who are operating at the national level, international organizations, even governments at various levels who are sincere in seeing Nigeria become better, need to strengthen and support. And the judiciary needs to stop covering up for corrupt officials. Let me say something very disheartening. In the past, it was said that the judiciary was the hope of the common man. Then it changed to become judiciary is the hope of the corrupt man. And now we are now talking about the judiciary, that has turned out to be something entirely something else that you don't even know how to characterize it. So truly, truly, if we can just have a judiciary that can stand and say enough, then there will be hope for the common man and for Nigeria, because civil society will run to the judiciary, but the politician will go with their Ghana must go and their billions, and before you know it, some kind of judgments that beat imagination will come from the Supreme Court that you don't know how to interpret.
All right, Dr.
So, my dear ladies, as we discussed this matter, and before the program, my segment came in, I heard somebody saying kudos to Arise TV for the wonderful thing that they are doing. I also join in saying kudos, because by the time we continue to have such engagement, we bring to
All
fore
right, Dr. Amos, thank
discussions
you very
that
much. Our
people
time
that are
has
not palatable but
come
that are
to
good
an
for
end.
Nigeria. So I also say
Unfortunately,
kudos to
we
you.
have to go. But yes, Trust TV, and thank you, Dr. Amos, for being right here and you know, shedding so much light on what is going on all the way from Yola in Adamu State. Thank you so much.
Thank you for speaking with us this morning.